Alright, what's going on everyone? In this video I'm going to show you how to upgrade the Mono White Aggro Challenger deck on a budget. All prices in this video will be in US dollars, and I know that isn't relevant to everyone, but the goal is to not spend more than the deck's retail price, so that should give you an idea. Current retail price around $30 or so that's how much we're spending. Hopefully that gives you an idea of how much this is going to cost, regardless of your currency. So the Mono White Aggro deck is alarmingly close to being complete out of the box. It really only has one issue, and that's the package of cards that trigger on casting multiple spells per turn. Around the time that these decks were likely being built, this was a popular build of Mono White Aggro around rotation time. However, over time, this version of the deck has fallen out of the metagame. The problem is you can't play too many high mana value cards in your deck because you need to cast multiple things per turn. So you can't play too many like Skyclave Apparition, Brutal Cathar, Adeline. You know, these 3 drops, great in Mono White Aggro, but you can't play too many of them if you need to cast multiple spells per turn to trigger Monk of the Open Hand, for example. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be upgrading this deck in 2 stages. First, I'll show you how to upgrade it, keeping that multiple spells per turn package intact. And then in stage 2, we'll ditch that and go into a more traditional, more popular Mono White Aggro deck that's currently at the top of the metagame. So first off, we have to take out the Faceless Havens. There's 3 of them, and these are banned and standard if you're playing at sanctioned tournaments. If you're playing casually, it's whatever, but in at Friday Night Magic and stuff, you have to take these out if you modify this deck, and you have 2 options to replace it with. You have Cave of the Frost Dragon and Crawling Barrens, and both of these are absolutely fine. Crawling Barrens is colorless, so it's a little bit dangerous, although it's cheaper to activate and it can get big over time. Cave is a white source, though it does come into play tapped in later turns, which is less of a problem with it in aggro deck, but could be relevant. But it does animate into a flying creature, so honestly, either of these are fine. I'm going to say that Cave of the Frost Dragon is my official recommendation, but if you have like 2 Crawling Barrens already, feel free to just buy 1 Cave and play 1 Cave, 2 Crawling Barrens. That's fine. You know, any combination. If you have any of these, that's fine, but any combination of these in the place of Faceless Haven is unfortunately necessary. Next, we're going to take out 4 Code Spell Clerics for 4 Hopeful Initiates. Now, I know I said I was going to leave this package intact, but these serve the same role. They're 1-drops that allow us to cast multiple things per turn, and even though technically the Code Spell Cleric gives us a counter if it's our second spell, the Hopeful Initiate is going to generate counters as well. It's a little bit more reliable because we don't have to cast it as our second spell, and it has some extra advantage with the activated ability. So honestly, it's just better. It also matches up better against Shambling Ghast, which is a major problem with all the 1-drops in this deck. So yeah, it's good. Definitely recommended. And that's actually it for stage 1. Like I said, this deck is basically done out of the box if you're playing the multiple spells per turn build. I don't really see too much reason to change much. I would say the only thing missing at this point is maybe just more Intrepid Adversary, which we're going to be adding in stage 2 anyway. But if you want to move out of this version of the deck with the multiple spells per turn package thing, first we'll take out a Monk of the Open Hand for a 3rd Thalia. Thalia is amazing because it slows down our opponent's removal. One of the biggest hurdles for playing aggro is your opponent constantly killing your stuff, and Thalia just makes all your opponent's removal, all their board sweepers, just much more clunky, which is what we're looking for in this type of deck. Next, we'll take out another Monk of the Open Hand for our 4th Elite Spellbinder. Once again, slowing down our opponent's removal is important for this deck, and the 3 power flying is also pretty great. What this deck is so good at is just making your opponent more incapable of just dealing with your pressure, which is great. We're also going to take out the last 2 Monk of the Open Hands for 2 Sun Gold Sentinels, and this is a free upgrade as it's already in your sideboard, so you just have to move these into your main board. 2 mana, 3 power is great. We don't have to worry about trying to get counters on it. It just already has 3 power. And also get protection from colors, which is also fantastic. Helps make that final push to kill off the opponent a little bit easier. And now we have 2 empty slots in our sideboard, and we're going to address those in just a little bit. Next, we need to start removing the Clarion Spirits, so we'll start by taking out 2 of them for 2 Adeline. Adeline is a powerhouse, has power equal to our creature count, and we do tend to go wide with this deck. But the best part is she makes a 1/1 token every time we attack. It's a very sturdy creature on the battlefield that gets more powerful, helps us go wide a little bit more consistently than the Clarion Spirits. So overall, just a lot better. We're going to take out another Clarion Spirit for an Intrepid Adversary. This is also insanely powerful. Not only is it 3 power for 2 mana, but in the late game, we can sink our mana into it, pump our board. Sometimes our opponent isn't expecting that. You know, they leave enough blockers back to just barely survive or something, and then we play this, all of our stuff gets more powerful. We can overwhelm the opponent. Also has lifelink, and that's very relevant in aggro matchups. So very good. Most decks play 4 actually. We have 2 at the moment. Finally, I want to take out the last Clarion Spirit for a Legion Angel. So this is a 4 mana, 4 power flyer, and it's not the most aggressive, right? 4 mana is a little bit clunky, but it's a nice top end threat. And the reason this is so good is when we play it, we get to search our sideboard for another one and put it into our hand. And the reason this is so good in aggro is our biggest weakness is board sweepers and spot removal, and this gives us a form of card advantage. Once we play it, we get another one into our hand. If our opponent wipes our board, not only do we have another creature, but that's going to find us another angel. So we can chain these angels and fight through board sweepers and spot removal. Not to mention, it's another flying threat, and that can help close out the game as well. So just a single copy main board, so it doesn't, impact the mana curve too much. It doesn't make our deck too clunky. But once we do get up to 4 mana, we have this chain of Legion Angels that could just give us gas in that mid game when our deck starts falling behind typically. So a very nice single copy in the deck. And this is what we're doing with those 2 sideboard slots we freed up earlier. We took out 2 Sun Gold Sentinels earlier and put them in the main board, so now we'll replace them with 2 Legion Angels, which gives us 1 main board, 2 sideboard, and I want to get a third one in, so we're going to take out a Loyal Warhound for another Legion Angel. Loyal Warhound just isn't really played. It's not that powerful, kind of a weird card in the sideboard. Don't really need it, so we're going to take that out, get our third Legion Angel. And I want to take out the other Loyal Warhound for a Valorous stance, just because I don't think this Warhound really needs to be in the sideboard. So this has become fairly popular in Mono White. It's not as good of a removal spell as, some of the stuff we have main board, like Fateful Absence, but it's versatile, right? We can bring it in when we need another removal spell against like big creatures, mono green for example, but it's also a protection spell if we need more protection against like black decks for example. So it's a versatile sideboard card, especially if we really need to take something out. This can always be slotted in as just another removal spell against certain decks, so not bad. Also, totally optional and not an official upgrade, but if you have any Aganjos, definitely consider adding them. I don't think it's absolutely necessary, but there's basically no reason not to add one if you have one. Multiple copies can get awkward because of the legend rule. These are legendary, so you can only have a single copy on board, but like a single copy, there's no downside really. It comes into play untapped and has the added benefit of being a removal spell if you're flooded, so no reason not to have one. Not an official upgrade, just something to consider. It's not necessary, but it also doesn't hurt. Another note is Redain and Brutal Cathar. So your deck has Redain main board and Brutal Cathar in the side, and this is very common, but different players have different preferences. Sometimes you see 2 Redain in the main board and 2 Brutal Cathar in the side, like your deck, but sometimes they're swapped. Sometimes you see Brutal Cathar main and Redain in the sideboard, and that's because these 2 cards have polar opposite decks that they're good against. Redain is good against control decks with board sweepers because she makes board sweepers more expensive, and Brutal Cathar is good against creature-based decks, so you can clear away blockers so your attackers can get through. And typically decks with lots of board sweepers don't play a lot of creatures, and decks with lots of creatures don't play a lot of board sweepers. So if you're in a very control heavy metagame, don't touch it. It's fine, you want Redain main board. If you're dealing with board sweepers like every game, you definitely want Redain. But if there aren't a lot of board sweepers in your metagame and you're having trouble attacking through like a lot of big green creatures, you might consider bringing Brutal Cathar in Redain's place and putting Redain in the sideboard, and then you can just swap those when you get matched up against a control deck and sideboarding. So just something to consider. And that's it guys, that is our deck. The deck we have now is pretty solid. If there's any complaint I have at all, it's probably that we only have 2 Intrepid Adversary, and it'd be nice to get maybe at least one, maybe two more in, and you could probably pull out Paladin classes for those. Paladin class is really good with Monk of the Open Hand and stuff, because it's a 1 mana spell that can trigger those, and then we can pay for the Anthem effect later. But since we're not trying to trigger the multiple spells per turn, Intrepid Adversary is probably better than Paladin class, so I would consider, if you do want the 2 extra copies of Intrepid Adversary, to probably just replace Paladin class. I think that's totally fine. But yeah, there you go guys. You can check the description below. I will leave a link to metagame tracking website so you can see the most up-to-date deck list, as you know, these will change over time. We have new Capenna coming soon. Who knows what new white aggro creatures we'll get in that set. So be sure to check the latest decks. I will leave a link in the description. Also a link to the final deck list if you're interested in that. So definitely have a look. But in the meantime, thanks for watching everyone. I hope this video was helpful, and I will see you in the next one.